All right, so welcome back to the Champ of Champions NFL tournament here at Grandstand Sports Data, and this is the ultimate what if battle to determine who is the greatest Super Bowl champion of all time. And for those of you who are just tuning in, let me give you a quick refresher. So we took the 59 Super Bowl winning teams, we seeded them based on their SRS rating, and that's their point differential adjusted for strength of schedule. And then we simulated every matchup using WhatIfSports.com to see who comes out on top. So each game has been run as a full simulation, only one simulation, and it'll be based on historical rosters, real coaching tendencies, and then even some home field adjustments that we've made. So now that the third round is complete, here's how the video will break down today. First, we're going to recap the round three results for each of the regions. Then we're going to highlight the best performances of the tournament so far. So that's the whole tournament, regardless of region, going from best offensive team, best game, and then yes, even the biggest upset. Then finally, we're going to preview the regional final, just very briefly though, because we'll be giving more in-depth videos for each of those matchups where the battles only get tougher and the field will tighten to the final four. So let's dive in and see who has survived this third round in this epic showdown. And let's start with the North recap. And in the North, we have in the first game the 0-2 Bucks taking on the 21 Rams, and the 0-2 Bucks absolutely smothered the 2021 Rams in this one. Tampa's defense forced Stafford into mistakes and held the Rams to just 30 rushing yards total and dominated the clock. Mike Allstott, he set the tone early with a bruising 35-yard run, and then Michael Pittman racked up 131 yards on the ground as well. The Rams had no answers, scoring just 3 points and never reaching the end zone. So the final here was 16-3. Bucks are moving on, and who will be their opponent? Well, let's take a look at the matchup between the 84 49ers and the 12 Ravens. You can see the 84 49ers were just too fast, too balanced, and too deep for the 12 Ravens. San Francisco erased a 24-17 halftime deficit behind Wendell Tyler's monster game on the ground and a clean, efficient outing from Joe Montana. Baltimore started hot with two Ray Rice touchdowns and a bomb to Anquan Bolden, but got completely shut down in the second half. The Niners outgained them on the ground 208-71 and dominated time of possession, advancing with a convincing 41-24 win. Moving on to the North Final against those 0-2 Bucks. Now, let's take on the West. And the recap here in the West is going to be the first game between the 94 49ers and the 75 Steelers. And that's right, you guessed it. The 94 49ers survived the slugfest with the steel tough 75 Steelers in a battle of grit and big plays. Steve Young and Ricky Waters struggled through the year but found huge gains on the ground, including a game-winning 67-yard end around by Jerry Rice, which was crazy when we were reading it. But Pittsburgh's Franco Harris dominated with 133 yards on the ground, and Bradshaw kept them in it with two touchdown passes, but the Niners were just too explosive in the run game, and a clutch Doug Bryan field goal before the half proved just enough. It's going to be 24-20 victory there for the 94 49ers, so they will be in the West final going against, you guessed it, the 69 Chiefs over the 66 Packers, and this one was a classic throwback slugfest in the Cotton Bowl. It was a 69 Chiefs leaned on a gritty run game and clutch kicking from Jan Sunerud, while Bart Starr kept the Packers within striking distance. After a low-scoring, back-and-forth battle, it was Sunerud who drilled the game winner in overtime to lift the Kansas City Chiefs over the Packers at 13-10. Defense ruled the day, and the Chiefs survive and advance to take on those 94 49ers. All right, so let's recap the East. And we're going to start with the first game is the 98 Broncos taking on the 2014 Patriots. And in a legendary clash of titans, the 98 Broncos came just 2 points shy of a comeback against the 2014 Patriots. Elway threw for about 304 yards and 3 touchdowns, earning player of the game. Not there, but Tom Brady's Pats capitalized on a key drive and a late Jonas Gray score to hang on to a 24-22 lead there. A missed PAT in the first half, and then a failed 2-point try with only 23 seconds left in the game for Denver sealed the fate for them in this instant classic. There you go. The 2014 Patriots will be moving on. Who will they be taking on? They will be taking on the 2013 Seattle Seahawks over the 1979 Steelers. This was two legendary defenses basically squaring up, and the Legion of Boom held firm. Marshawn Lynch, he bullied in the game with only about one rushing touchdown, but Seattle's pass defense shut down Pittsburgh in the second half, and despite a valiant effort from Terry Bradshaw and a late first half score to Stallworth, the 79 Steelers just couldn't crack Pete Carroll's modern-day juggernaut, and the Seattle Seahawks will be moving on in a 13-7 victory. They'll be taking on the year later's team who actually stopped them on the goal line, the 2014 New England Patriots. So let's jump over to the South and see who will be making it there and be the finalists. We're going to start with the first games, the 2000 Ravens taking on the 1988 49ers. We had Joe Montana and Jerry Rice. They came out absolutely swinging, but it was Shannon Sharp and Matt Stover who stole the show. Despite a pick six to start the game, Baltimore stayed composed. Dilfer hit Sharp for two scores, and then Stover drilled four second-half field goals to ice it. It was the 2000 Ravens that their defense basically tightened late, holding Montana scoreless in that fourth quarter. They go on 33 to 24, and they will be taking on the 1999 St. Louis Rams. It was the greatest show on turf. They raced out to a 17 to nothing lead behind Marshall Faulk's electric first half. He ripped off a 58-yard touchdown and then caught for another one. But the undefeated, like to scratch that, the 1973 Dolphins fought back, tying it at about 17 with only 39 seconds left. But in overtime, Jeff Wilkins sealed it. He hit a 35-yarder to win the game there for the Rams. Warner's Rams will survive with that late comeback and a thriller there in the Cotton Bowl. 20 to 17, they will take on the 2000 Ravens in the South Final. Okay, so we wanted to hand out some awards when it comes to the entire tournament. So the first three rounds, what teams have been the best offensive team, best defensive team, and so on and so forth. I'm going to start with the first one. What was the best offensive team so far? It's been the 1994 San Francisco 49ers. While the 84 Niners and the 2014 Patriots have flashier points per game throughout this tournament, the 94 49ers put up strong numbers against one of the toughest slates. That includes in 75 Steel Curtain defense, and then they still averaged over 23 points per game. So if we're strictly adjusting for strength of schedule, they actually edge out the rest of the competition, and their offense has looked the most efficient. Now, when we're talking about the best defense, we're going to talk about the 2002 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They've only let up about 7.3 points per game so far in this tournament while facing the toughest offenses, basically slate throughout this tournament. That includes the number one ranked team, the 91 Redskins, and then they took the 69 Chiefs, who are a close second to the 2002 Buccaneers. I will say that for clamping down a pretty good competition themselves, and I believe they're giving up only about 10 points per game. But the team with the best defense, I think so far, it's clearly the 2002 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, let's move on to the best game so far through this tournament. And I want to say it was the 98 Broncos taking on the 2014 Patriots. It's a back and forth game, basically all game, and it ends with a 2-point try for the tie, and they're stuffed in the final seconds. That was huge there for the 2014 New England Patriots. Would like to move on to now the biggest upset of the tournament. The biggest upset of the tournament is the 2012 Ravens over the 2004 Patriots. Some people might scoff at that. They might think it's the 85 Bears, but I will say it was statistically the biggest upset when you were comparing seeds. So as the Ravens were ranked about 49 spots lower than the Patriots team, but Flacco basically outgunned Brady, which makes it the most shocking result of the tournament so far. So I think it had that shocking element along with the numbers, the statistical factor of it being, when you compare their ranks, being the biggest differential. Now, what about the most surprising elimination? I will give that to the 85 Bears. I think this is probably the consensus pick to win the tournament. Even in a tournament where it was single elimination and no home field advantage, you still would expect the 85 Bears to be a team that would, if they were to get clipped, it would be in like the final four. I think they first game they were gone and they were gone to like the 98 Broncos. I think that that's a little much. I think, it's that I think that they suffered from, having one simulation per game, and sometimes the thing that doesn't always supposed to happen may just happen, and I think that's, for lack of a better word, what happened to the 85 Bears. Now, you get your popcorn ready moment. I have to go with the 2014 New England stop against the 98 Broncos on a 2-point try to tie the game with only 30 seconds left. So this is the second stop on the goal line from this specific team in their history. So if you remember, Butler picked off Russell Wilson at the goal line in the actual Super Bowl that they matched up in. But in this tournament, now they got a huge tackle on the goal line against Terrell Davis to prevent a tie. So that was huge. Not a tie, but to prevent it from going into overtime. So now they're moving on to the Elite Eight. That's also factored into it. It was one of the later games, round 3 instead of round 1. That's, I guess you want to put a little bit of weight when it comes to, just that it's deeper in the tournament. Right, so let's take a look at what's going on going forward, and we're just going to touch on the regional finals. Here are your final eight. We're down to the elite eight teams here. There's only 4 games and one step away from that final four. So let's break them down individually. You're going to see basically in round one, or excuse me, not round one, the matchup one is going to be 2002 Buccaneers taking on the 84 49ers. Storyline here is going to be the Bucs' historic defense, right? The one that swallowed entire offenses whole. It goes up against Montana, Walsh, and one of the most precise passing attacks of all time. It's going to be when Smash Mouth football meets that West Coast brilliance. Can that 0-2 defense bend the GOAT system, or will Joe Cool shred the unshreddable? That's going to be the huge question in this one. Now, for that second matchup, you get the 94 49ers taking on the 69 Chiefs. It's the star-studded 94 Niners led by Steve Young in his MVP form. And they're going to face that 1969 Chiefs squad that made a living on beating you up in the trenches, right? And this is going to be speed versus steel. Will the modern firepower run wild, or will the 69 wall hold firm? That is the question in that matchup. Moving on to the third one, we got the 2014 Patriots taking on the 13 Seattle Seahawks. Basically, it's very close to a rematch. Before it was even a thing, but it's going to be Brady and Belichick, right? That precision offense against the Legion of Boom at their peak. That's obviously going to be a game that you're going to want to stay tuned for. Will history repeat itself, or does Seattle rewrite that ending? Matchup number 4 is going to be the 2000 Ravens taking on the 99 Rams. It's the greatest defense of the modern era meets the greatest show on turf. Ray Lewis versus Kurt Warner. Smash Mouth Baltimore versus aerial artistry in St. Louis. Is defense still king, or can the Rams turn this into a track meet? That's going to be the question here. So we got 4 games, 4 epic storylines, only 4 survivors. So you have to buckle up. The final 4 is right around the corner. And that's going to wrap up the round 3 review. If you're still with us, you're a real one, but we're just getting started here. Here is your moment to jump in. You can subscribe if you don't want to miss those regional finals. You can drop a like if you like this concept, and you can also comment below who you think will win it all. And hey, you can share this with a friend who gets into these type of hypothetical historical matchups. In the next episode, we will be diving deeper into the individual matchups for these regional finals. So stay tuned for that, and we'll see you guys in the next one.